everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang.
This is part one of my online teacher scam story. I have written notes, so I'm not going to leave anything out. This was post-COVID, a couple of months after COVID, after returning to the classroom as a teacher. And I had a friend at the time. We had worked together for a couple of years in the same school. He was looking for a different career path, wanted to change. And I was kind of feeling the same way, that post-COVID burnout as a teacher, looking for something new, looking to make a little bit more money. We weren't really sure what was our next step. So after a few months of talking about this, he found a new job at a new school. I continued at the school where we met at. And he calls me one day, this was in January or February, and he's like, hey, I just interviewed for a big time job and I got it. I'm going to be working from home. I'm going to be starting up this new company and they're paying me $150,000 a year to do this. And I was like, this is insane. We had never heard of that kind of money, especially for a teacher like around our age. So we were super, super excited about it. And he called me and was basically like, I can offer your position. I have to build my own administrative team for this education company and I want you to join. And I was like, okay, tell me more details. He said, it's fully remote, it's online, you can make $80,000 and keep your day job, keep teaching during the day and then just work like afternoon, evenings, sometimes on weekends, but eventually it'll just kind of run itself. You can make $80,000. I was like, okay, this is amazing. This is exactly what I was looking for. I was super excited. So he brought me in to interview via Zoom and I talked with him and another person who was in charge, someone that my friend had hired. And within the hour, they emailed me and were like, hey, you got it. Send us over a W-9. We're excited that you're going to join this team. I was like, cool, this sounds awesome. So they began to explain a little bit about what this education organization was going to be. And they talked about how there were students all over the US, but specifically in Florida, that were struggling to graduate. And this was, like I said, January or February. And so they had a couple of months, one semester before they were going to graduate high school, but were missing pretty significant gaps in their education for a multitude of reasons. Some were failing, some had to leave high school early, all of these different things. But this program was going to be helping these students kind of make up their core classes for high school in order to graduate on time. So it would be like English courses and math courses and history courses, the things that these students needed in order to graduate. I was like, great, that sounds awesome. I love kind of the mission behind it to help these students achieve a high school diploma. We were specifically talking about one district, although there were plans to kind of grow it, but we started in Miami-Dade County in Florida. And so I did some of my own research on Miami-Dade County, saw that yes, there is a need for this high school retention. The high school diploma rate is dropping. So I could see how this program would be really beneficial for some of these students. And I was really excited about making all of this money in an online remote position. So I interviewed and the next day was invited to an admin meeting where I was on Zoom for about 3 hours with 8 other people who had just been hired. All were connected to my friend somehow. He had a bunch of connections in education from all over, and we met on Zoom the very next day and talked through how we were going to create this program for about 3 hours long. He said that the job that he was going to offer me was going to be such a significant amount of money. I was going to start at $80,000, but I had room to grow, which was really exciting. And also I wanted to show that I was excited and interested in this program. So I jumped in kind of head first. I was looking a little bit into the platform and the website surrounding the program that we were creating. The name of the program was kind of generic, and when I Googled it, there was not much that came up. So I had these immediate red flags, but I also was like, well, this is a startup. My friend's trying to make it something big. We need to create a website. We needed to get our website name intact. We needed to get passwords and email addresses and all of these things. So I understood that this was a new project and all of my questions wouldn't be answered right away. So at that moment, there was 8 of us. We were building this brand new program. So I'm like, all in, I'm gonna make $80,000, keeping my job, and they said they're shipping us a brand new MacBook within the week. And so I'm like, cool, all right, let's go. So back up a little bit, I learned a little bit more of how this kind of came to be for my friend and his job. So he was hired by this man named David, who apparently secured a federal grant for $6 million, was using this $6 million to pay us to start this organization for students in Florida, specifically in Miami-Dade County. He hired my friend to kind of oversee this organization. This David guy was kind of the person who was in charge, and my friend was more of the one who was the director and leading this and organizing all of this stuff. So after I DocuSigned a contract and inputted all of my information into an HR platform called Breezy HR, including my W-9 information, address, social security number, any information that they needed to pay me, I quickly found myself in this work. So I would come home from teaching and I would spend anywhere from 3 to 5 hours on Zoom calls on my laptop, just kind of hunched over, doing all of the things that we needed to do in order to get this program going. It was very rapid pace. Everything was stressful. Everything was crazy. I would get emails, multiple emails every hour of different things that we needed to do, startup things that we needed to do in order for these students to start taking their courses. I was hired as an administrator, and there were hundreds of students that were ready to start taking these courses within days of me getting hired. I think it was 3 or 4 days after I was getting hired, there were 150 high school students that were ready to start taking these courses. And we were in a super high demand for more people to join this team. We were hiring on more people. And so I reached out to a couple of my teacher friends, teacher coworkers, and a few of my family members who have been in education or worked with students before, and asked them if they wanted to join, because we were looking for teachers to do kind of some basic things up at the beginning of the organization. So they were inputting grades, they were looking at rosters, they were creating Google Classrooms, they were sending out daily reminder emails of work, sort of like teacher aid responsibilities. And so I hired, and the company hired 4 people that I knew at the beginning of this project. My best friend, one of the people that I worked with who I loved and who also knew my friend who was in charge of this. We all just kind of jumped on. We were excited to make this extra money. We were excited to kind of find just a different spot in education for ourselves. Okay, so as they were inputting grades, looking at rosters, creating Google Classrooms, I was more on the curriculum side, where I was developing curriculum for a high school English course for these students to take. It was supposed to be only a 3-week program that they were able to receive high school credit for all of their English semester. So it was supposed to be rigorous material. They were writing, they were going to kind of upload different things. However, there were technical difficulties at the beginning of the program. So instead of doing synchronous classes, which we were eventually going to start, and all of the teachers who were hired on this program were definitely suggesting synchronous courses, the idea was that once we kind of started getting these students in the LMS platform that we were using, we were logging them onto Google Classrooms, that we would eventually turn to synchronous. But right now, everything had to be asynchronous and everything had to be multiple choice. Me as a teacher, I'm like, that is totally terrible teaching. And how can a high school student actually achieve what they're learning in high school English an entire semester in 3 weeks via multiple choice questions online? And I questioned those things at the beginning, but it was kind of like, we're going to get there. It's going to be a good program. Right now, we just kind of need to get it started because we have all of these students that are starting in 4 days. And I was like, okay, I get it. I understand. So I'm making readings and multiple choice questions and putting them into Google Classroom platforms and trying to get answer keys out so that the teachers under me could grade the questions. And after a couple of days, we started. There was term one, there was class one, there were 150 names on a roster that we got and that we were pushing out assignments, and we were getting grades back every day. Now the grades needed to be imported into a different LMS platform that would then kind of spit out the term grade, the progress report grade. We had contact information for families and parents. So we had some of our teachers reaching out to these family members of certain students that, you know, your student missed class today and their progress grades are tomorrow, because again, this course is like an entire semester worth of English in 3 weeks. So if you miss a day or if you miss the assignments on that day, it's a big deal. And there was so much pressure to get all of these things done. And it was every single day, there was more that was added. There was, okay, we're opening up 3 new classrooms. So we have all of these other students and we have to hire 6 new people. We're now offering English 1, but we're also offering English 2. So you need to develop an entire new curriculum. And again, all of the teachers on this program are like, why are we doing asynchronous? This makes no sense. And the idea was that these students in Miami-Dade County were meeting with teachers that were at the actual school in a classroom, and they were logging on to our platform. So these teachers or teachers' aides in the physical school building were checking these students in. Students were logging onto the platforms, completing the work. Now, it was interesting because those of us who know Google Classroom know that you can see students kind of populate in your Google Classroom. That never happened. They said that as we were uploading the work in Google Classroom, it was being transferred to the LMS platform that the students in Miami-Dade County used. And they were completing the work there, and we were just getting grade reports. So it was like these giant Excel spreadsheets of names and their answers to however many 25 question multiple choice, and we had to go through and score and grade them and then re-input a score into our spreadsheet. It was so much work. It was very tedious. There was lots of documents and spreadsheets going back and forth, and I am trying to lead a team of people that I have no idea what's actually going on. They don't really know, but we're just spending time on Zoom trying to figure out what's going on, what is happening. So things started, but every day things got a little weird. So like, for example, the first day there was a fire drill that happened in the school building that these students were in. And so for whatever reason, none of them could finish the assignments for that day. And so we had to go through and change the scoring and figure out, you know, which classroom was affected by the fire drill and who was acting up during the fire drill. We would get these behavior reports from some of the teachers that were on site with these students saying like, so-and-so acted up, you need to email his parents, here's the contact information. And so some of our teachers were emailing the parents and just really stressed about all of the things that are happening. There's fire drills. There are kids, like there's a gas odor. We get this email from a teacher that's saying like, there's a gas odor in the classroom. And so this group of students can't finish. We're like, oh my God, there's a gas odor? Like, what are we supposed to do with this? So then we have a whole team of people that was hired by my friend that are writing like class like laws of the school and what's going to happen and all of this like HR work and what's going to happen with the teachers and how students need to like classroom conduct. We had a dean of students that was writing classroom and student contracts and what the code of conduct was for our online academy. After the gas odor, after a fire drill, students got into fights, students started being inappropriate online. We would get emails that were like cussing out some of us, the teachers that were working with these students. We were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so we would again have parent contact. We would have to reach out to these parents via these different emails, and we would get replies saying like, you know, thank you for letting me know. At one point I had one of my best friends join the group, and she was on a video call with other people from our staff, and someone joined the video call as her and showed an inappropriate picture on this video call. And we were like, oh my God, how is this working? It totally has her name, and it's just a awful nude photo being shown in this video call. And we were like, oh my gosh, it's these students. Like we don't know what to do because our code of conduct is not working. So after the video call incident, we got an email, which we got multiple emails all day long from this David guy saying like, hey, this happened or all of these students are coming, or you need to change this and shift this. And at this point, he had said that the LMS platform, all of the platforms that we were using were hacked by the students. And so we had to now restart and recreate everything that we just spent a week putting together, throwing up online. We had to recreate it for a new platform. And the red flags did not stop there. We're about 3 weeks in. We added a middle school program and multiple high school terms, which meant more students, more staff members, and more time. We had about 30 to 40 staff members at this point, and I personally knew about 10 of them. At this point, it's been over 2 weeks, and that means our first paychecks were late. I worked as a leader prior to the rest of the staff, so it was understood that that first week would kind of be rolled into the other 2-week paycheck. But when I started asking questions about why we didn't get paid, there were so many issues that came up, technical issues. The HR platform wasn't working. They weren't sure how to safely get the money out to everyone. And the first major red flags was that David, who was in charge of this whole company, was unable to join any call that we were having online. He was reachable through email, through chat, through Gmail, but he would not get on a phone call due to his son being in the hospital. So again, because one of my friends is the person in charge of the company, I'm asking him questions and he's assuring me that we will get paid. We're just going to have to move the pay date back by a couple of weeks, a couple of days in order to get all of this information sorted out. I said, okay, I'm trusting you. I'm racking up hours, I'm racking up money, and you are my friend, so I trust that you are going to get me paid. However, I did have these red flags and these feelings from the beginning, so it started to make me do my own digging. There was one email about the gas odor that happened at the school building where all of these students were taking our courses, and it was signed by a teacher that sent this email informing us at the online academy about the gas odor and that the students weren't able to finish our work. I looked up this teacher. I found her. She is a teacher. She works for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And I found her on Facebook and sent her a message and said, hey, I am with this online academy. I am kind of getting a sketchy vibe and I just wanted to know, do you also work for them? Are you working for them through Miami-Dade County? What connection do you have for this program and what do you know? A couple days later, she messaged me back and said she had no idea what I was talking about. At that moment, I knew it was fake. I knew something was a lie, but with my real coworkers, my real friends, these are people that I'm interacting with every day that I know personally, it was hard for me to tell where the lie actually was. I'm sitting on a Zoom call one night with my coworker, who is both my coworker in the online academy and my coworker in real life. And we're talking about this girl that I found on Facebook. She has no idea what's happening. And I'm telling her this as she's inputting some of the grades of her students' work. And she's pausing as she's inputting the grades. She's looking at some of the names. Some of the names are Frank Bailey, Glenda Bailey, Dorothy Barber, James Barrett. And we start to get this weird feeling of like, let's Google some of these names. So we start Googling down the list of the roster of hundreds and hundreds of kids. And we realize that these were real people. However, they were real people that have died from COVID in the last year. Every single one of them had an obituary that was tied to a COVID death. Okay, so we know that the people, the teachers in Florida are fake, and the students do not exist. What is going on? We are at the point where we need to find out who this scammer is. We're racking our brains. I'm talking to my friends who are also in this with me at this point, and we're trying to figure out who is the person that has scammed this entire program. Looking back at our files, we're looking back at screenshots, trying to figure out, are there any breadcrumbs that we can find or anything fishy? Obviously, there's a ton of things that are fishy, but can we actually pinpoint it to one person? So to backtrack a little bit, the inappropriate picture was shared via video chat because my friend's account got hacked. So someone had taken a screenshot of that share moment, and we went back to that photo and learned a couple of things. Number one, we learned that in the bookmarks of this person's shared screen, who again, the name was my friend, so there was no name on this video call, but in the bookmarks, it bookmarked study skills. Now remember, study skills was one of the courses that was thrown onto us after we had already started the program that we were building curriculum and having students take. Fishy. Number two, another bookmark on this person's web browser when we took this screenshot was Homebase. Homebase was the timekeeping app that we used for this program. And lastly, when my friend looked back in her email to check the email that she received that her account was hacked, it said the account was hacked in Georgia. Then we knew someone was scamming us from within. We go back to the very beginning, and something was revealed that we did not know up front. My friend who was hired had never actually met or spoke to David in real life. When he was hired, they did a video interview where my friend was on a video and David was sending him questions via chat. My friend never spoke to David, never saw David on a video call, nothing. Obviously, as soon as I heard that, I was furiously mad. So at this point, we're basically going through the entire list of people and trying to figure out who is the person behind this. The staff was connected to my friend, just like I was, and I was connected to all of the people that I brought on and so on. However, there were jobs for this online academy posted on Handshake, Indeed, LinkedIn, all these other platforms that we were constantly looking at, recruiting, interviewing people to join us. Obviously, I first look at my friend who hired me, who brought me on, but I know him, I trusted him. We hung out, we were actually friends. Of course, he is not behind this whole thing and dragged me into it. Something else we learned was that there was only one other person that was actually hired on before my friend was, or at the same time as my friend was. This person did not know my friend initially, but was given to him as like you are going to grow this together, but this person is going to be underneath you. My friend's title was something like executive director, and his title was assistant director. This guy lived in Georgia. And what we find out is absolutely insane. Just as I'm beginning to question things publicly, the leadership team all expenses paid trip to Miami schedule is dropped, where we will enjoy 4 days in Miami on the water, including a yacht dinner and 2 parties. We're searching this guy that lives in Georgia. We find him. We find that he works at a school. We find that he had a previous criminal record for fraud because he stole money from a coworker at the school he was at. We're reading through all of these public criminal records and pretty much sure that this is the person behind all of this. So I pick up the phone and call my friend who hired me. I brought all of this to his attention, which I had through text, but I hadn't directly talked to him on the phone over this or had a Zoom call with him, even though we had been video calling for days and days. And I said, like, listen, I have found this guy. I found that he has a criminal record. I think that all of these things are connected and here's why. And he totally reassured me that everything was fine, that this is not a scam. We're getting paid. Sometimes it's hard when startups happen like this because things are clunky at the beginning. We will get through this. Trust the process. Your pay is coming soon. And when it does, it's going to be amazing. All of our pay is going to be amazing. Questions about pay every single day from me, from other members of the leadership team, from the other 40 to 50 employees that we had hired at this point. Every single day people were asking about pay, and every single day there were different emails being sent and signups we needed to do, excuses for why we weren't getting paid and when we were getting paid next. And then my friend who hired me calls me and says, I'm getting a promotion. So the restructuring of the company happened, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in the course of 4 or 5 weeks, where every week, because we were adding so many new students and so many new schools, people would just continue raising positions and your pay would increase by thousands of dollars. Right after I have this call with my friend, I get an email that I'm getting promoted to be the executive director of Texas. So now, not only do we have an online academy going in Florida, but we're expanding to multiple states. And one of them is Texas. And I have now grown and climbed the ladder that I am going to be in charge of the entire state of Texas, making like $250,000 a year. At this point, I'm trying to use every moment of my time to figure out what's happening and try to bust this scam and bust the people who are in it that are running this scam. As I'm doing this, some of the tutors and teachers that are hired, we're now growing. I think we were at almost 80 employees. People are starting to quit because they are not getting paid. At this point, I had told anybody that I had brought onto this company that they need to quit and remove their information immediately, and they did. People are getting really freaked out and quitting in huge numbers every hour, it seems. Somehow the company is still running and there's this urgency around all these students. We're still getting the fire drill gas odor emails and we're getting more courses added, more scheduling conflicts. All of that nonsense was still happening while I was questioning what was going on. After the 10-ish people I brought on quit, I got asked by the executive team to come in for a meeting because all of my referrals just quit. They knew that I knew and they were pissed.
Only for your friendship with, for number one, but if you're compassionate as an educator and you feel so strongly about your stance, as strongly as you're voicing your opinion now, then you know what you should have done is you should have stuck with what you said, that you were stepping down until you got your pay. And guess what we could have done? We may not have been able to schedule all these kids, but we could have made arrangements if you and your entire posse decided not to work. And that would have been okay, right? This would not have been a conversation because like you are going to have to do what is best for you at the end of the day. No one is mad and upset that you are upset about your pay. I get it. Voice your concerns. Ask your questions. Do I agree with how you ask your questions? No, I don't. Do I agree with how you go about it? No, I don't. And I never will. We do things differently. But at the end of the day, the real issue is the fact of how things have unfolded in the last hour. That is what's making me mad, and that is what my issue is here, because it's completely unprofessional. Take an academy out of it. As a person and as a human and as an educator, it was handled completely incorrectly, and it stems from you because you refer these people. And if you all knew at 1 o'clock how you felt, nothing has changed since 8 o'clock, because let's be real, again, that the 5 o'clock meeting that everyone found out about the Wisely cards and the expectation of pay has not changed, because not only did they get the email from David last night, which they all read, it was just copy and pasted information from David the night before, or from David's email the night before, that was on a PowerPoint slide at the meeting at 5 o'clock. So nothing new said for everyone to magically change their mind and magically resign at 8 o'clock after a schedule had been made. You knew, and your friends knew how they felt at 1 p.m. this afternoon, and every single one of you should have, at that point, stepped down and said, hey, I'm going to hold off until I get my pay, because I just personally feel that it should have been sent. Yeah, that's annoying, but guess what? That's something that can be worked with because we've known about it. We now have all these kids scheduled. So when I tell you that you should reflect as a person, as an educator, and as a friend on how you went about this situation, you have some reflection to do. And whether you agree with me or not, that's perfectly fine. But the way you went about this and the way you've allowed your friends to carry on and go about this are completely out of line.
Okay, this is not going to go any further because
you're right. It's not going to go any further. It's going to end right here.
That's fine.
We'll make sure that you get your check. Okay, we'll make sure that we'll make sure that you go ahead and get your pay. For the rest of your people, I'm not going to speak to them. If they want to resign, I'm going to let you know right now, because I'm, as an educator, whoever is left within this bracket, if they do not want to work because they feel and they stand with you and as a friend, and that's how their view is, and X, Y, and Z, and they quote unquote don't want to do that all hands on deck, they need to submit either a resignation to myself, to my email address.
Are you going to speak to them or no?
I can speak to them, absolutely. I don't have a problem speaking to anybody.
Okay,
at all.
you just
So I
said
can
you
have a
didn't want to
conversation
speak to
with
them, so.
I'm sorry, say that again?
You said you just didn't want to speak to them. So you are open to speaking to people, or?
I've always been open to speaking to people.
Okay.
I don't get involved in this foolishness because it's foolishness. I shouldn't have to step in. But when I have to step in, I'm going to always voice my concerns and be very vocal with how I feel about things because this is absolutely crazy.
Sure.
So, I was not done. Like I said, by 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, I have to make a decision on what we are doing because at the end of the day, students still have to be served. Do I personally think we're going to get paid? Yes. So I'm going to continue.
All your people are not willing to continue, but you are. Like you're okay with the meeting and everything going forward.
No, I'm not okay. I have had a conversation with David, and I'm sure all of you know about by now that I'm definitely not okay.
What specifically are you not okay about, I guess, is what I'm trying to understand.
Not okay that you gave me a payday and didn't pay me on that payday. Send a check on that payday. That's my issue. Pass it on to David. David sent me an irate message back and then proceeded to talk to me in a Google chat with Nick after, like, I went to the question was, when are you going to send me money? And that apparently was not a question that was, able to be asked.
So no question that you asked ever, Victoria, is ever quote unquote able to be asked. We can go ahead and start there. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to understand that if you have a pay date, and I don't know if you worked in the school district, I worked in the school district. Anytime I've gotten a paper check, the paper checks do not get mailed until the day of the pay, the day you're supposed to get paid.
Yes, exactly. I am fully aware of that, and I'm not asking for money in my account.
Said, hold on, I'm not done speaking. With that being said, today is a Sunday. If they would have been mailed on Friday, you still would have not gotten it by today. So to me, the real issue is not that you didn't get the check on your payday, because that would have never happened on the 18th. They would have went out on the 18th. The issue is here, you don't like the fact that you're getting a Wisely card. That is the real issue here. Secondly, you bring up the fact of, quote unquote, as a friend. And we're just going to keep this conversation real at this point. Because at this point, the relationship between X9 Academy and you is not working. So we can just go ahead and lay everything out on the table and we can keep it real. As a friend, Victoria, to quote unquote reaching out, you should have been more cognizant and aware of the fact that all the people that you referred are now quitting when the quote unquote friend that is now the national director. So as a quote unquote friend, you should have reached out to him and said, hey, these people are resigning. Instead, you have now put him in a bind to deal with this foolishness. It's all unprofessional.
So we left off with the video of the couple people on a Zoom call berating me because I had brought up concerns and several people that I had brought on to the company quit at the same time. The guy who was doing the majority of the talking and shaming in that video was the guy from Georgia. He was the one who had a previous criminal record for fraudulent charges out of the school district he worked for. This was also the guy who had brought on my friend to be in charge of the entire organization. Because he was so mad on that call, it confirmed for me that this entire thing was fake. I had valid concerns. I was voicing this on behalf of many other people in the company, none of which were on leadership. Immediately got met with screaming about nothing and being called unprofessional for over an hour-long Zoom call. Now, during this Zoom call, they had made several claims that involved anonymous emails that had been sent to some members of the leadership team, some members of the staff, and some to the entire staff that were essentially calling out these different members of the leadership team, telling people that this was a scam and this was fake and that they should run and not believe anybody that was in charge. Obviously, you saw the executive team members get really heated over this, and they basically turned and pointed the finger at me because I had told everybody I was connected to leave the program that day. I did not send those emails. I don't know how people sent those emails. My name wasn't even attached to the emails, but they just wanted to point the finger at me because I was the whistleblower on this entire scam. Throughout this entire call, the friend who had hired me, the one that I worked with, the one that was friends with me for several years, said absolutely nothing. He let those two other men who were in charge scream, berate, antagonize, and blame me for over an hour. And at the end of it, I told them I will submit my resignation. I am done. Not only was I done being a part of this organization, but I was also done with the friendship with the person that hired me on. I left the company and I told them before I left that Zoom call that I would be reporting them, and I did. So then I reported this scam to over 15 different places. I reported to the FBI, the US Department of Education, the Attorney General of Florida, several news stations out of Florida, Georgia, the Department of Education in Florida, radio shows, podcasts, really anybody who had a place that I could submit information, submit screenshots, and say to contact me, I reported. Within about 2 days, I heard back from the FBI. I spent over an hour on the phone with the FBI talking through all the parts of this scam, giving names, giving dates, giving places. They asked for my screenshots and I sent them in. They gave me a reference number that I checked in on a couple of times to see what the status was. Within a couple days of submitting this to the FBI, I did get a follow-up email asking some clarifying questions, which I responded to. At that point, I never heard from the FBI again. I did call and ask about the reference number that I was given, and they said they could not give me any information about it. Several people from the offices of the Department of Education of the US, the Department of Education of Florida, the Attorney General of Florida, several of those office people reached back out to me, asked me for my email, gave me emails or places to submit the information I had, but nothing ever came of any of those people either. There was one news station that did pick up the story. They wrote an article and asked for a video interview, in which case then I was on the news.
New here at 10 o'clock, they're experienced educators who were promised good money for teaching struggling South Florida students.
Kevin Ozebek has tonight's 7 Investigates.
Love some sort of justice.
Remote jobs at Excel Online Academy, a company they were told was based in Miami and headed by a man named David. The mission was to create a virtual learning program for students who fell behind during the pandemic. Developed word games and quizzes. Entire curriculums were created. Many of them were pulling 7-day work weeks loaded with overtime. Victoria thought at $36 an hour, it would be well worth the massive paycheck.
I would be essentially making way more hourly than I do currently as a teacher.
But spreadsheets of the Miami-Dade students she would be helping, she grew suspicious. Thought it was odd David would never take a phone or video. First payday on March 18th arrived.
It is the 18th, and I haven't heard a word on where this money is, where it's coming or going.
Employees were told Excel's main office was located at 444 Brickell Avenue, but the front desk staff at the building say they never heard of Excel Online Academy. We also could not find the company listed in Florida business records. And Miami-Dade County Public Schools tells us we are not aware of Excel Online Academy and do not have any affiliation.
The U.S. Department of Education will not say if Excel Online Academy is being investigated. Kevin Ozebek, 7 News.
At this point, there were pockets of group threads and group emails going around just sharing content of screenshots and videos and different email messages or chat messages that people had saved, trying to figure out who exactly was behind this. Really didn't know who to believe. The friend that had hired me could be in on it, but he could have nothing to do with it and got played just like the rest of us. It's important to know the timeline on this. Everybody that I was connected to on Saturday quit the company after I told them quit and remove your information immediately. The next day on Sunday, I was brought into a Zoom call with the executive team where I got destroyed for voicing my concern. The following week started and there were classes, there were students, and business was running as usual on this online academy scam. And I really didn't know anything that was going on, except there was one more person that I was connected to that stayed in.
Boy, she sure can yap, dog. Who's behind the damn scam anyway?
So there was still one person that I was connected to who was working for this online company after everyone else was fired or left. Early on, as we were hiring all these teachers and tutors, curriculum developers on the education side of this organization, we also needed to build up the HR and operations team. I reached out to one of my family members who had been in HR and operations, told her about this online opportunity where she would make amazing money and could work from home, and she jumped on. So every single day she would send Florida weather reports to the entire company, even though everyone were online workers. So she had to predict the weather in Florida every single day, the average temperatures, the highs and lows, if it was gonna rain or not, and then send that to the entire company every single day. She thought obviously it was the easiest HR operations job in the entire world, but looking back, we realized that it was just trying to get her to produce something. During this week where I am no longer with the company and neither is anybody else I'm connected to except for my one family member who's still there, she gets called into a meeting with executive leadership team to talk about these anonymous emails. And they ask her, do you have any connection with these emails? Did you write these emails? She says, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. However, I do have concerns over this entire organization that I haven't gotten paid, that nobody's gotten paid, and I think that David is shady and this is a scam. Executive team members who are on this call with her answer her questions, they have a conversation, she leaves the call, a couple minutes later gets an email that she has been fired. This was towards the end of that week. She's done, she's fired, we no longer have anybody else connected that I know of that's connected to this company. That was on a Thursday. Friday morning, around 10 a.m., we get an email that the entire company has been wiped from the internet. The website is gone. Our email addresses are gone. Chat history, email history, timekeeping information, all of the information imported into our HR platforms was completely wiped from the internet. No one could log in, no one could access anything. The reason everybody knew this is because everyone had applied or submitted their personal email address before changing over to the email address that they use with the organization. So everyone's personal emails got emailed by my friend who hired me saying this is what happened at 10 a.m. today. Everything was wiped. No one can access anything. And David is gone. So at the end, there were almost 100 employees, people from tutors to teachers to executive team members to HR team to operations team that were involved in this online academy scam. Two of the executive team members, along with the person who hired me, decided to host a Zoom call the next day, trying to give everybody some understanding of what went down. It's been 24 hours since the entire scam shut down. There was not a trace of anything on the internet. You could not access or log into any of the platforms that we had used over the last 6 weeks. And about 50 or 60 people log onto a Zoom call where the person who hired me and two of the executive team members are going through a slideshow of all of the reasons why they are not involved in this scam. They're going through dates, they're going through screenshots, emails, things that they had saved, trying to prove their innocence from this scam. The first about 40 minutes of this Zoom call is these three men talking through all of the receipts that they had, trying to say, look, we got scammed too, we did not get paid, this shut down, we have no idea where David is, and we have no idea where that second in command guy from Georgia is either. Most of what they were saying in the screenshots they were bringing up, I agreed with and I knew were true from their perspective. However, I brought up all of these concerns 1 week before and got screamed at for an hour, telling me that I needed to be more professional and as an educator, I should never say these things. So why am I supposed to believe any of these people are innocent when just 1 week before they told me that it was my fault everything was going down? Now, after about 40 minutes of this Zoom call, they open it up for a Q&A session of the 50 or 60 people that are on this call. And as you probably guessed, it was intense. People were livid. Almost 100 people committed weeks, months, hours and hours of their lives working for this company. Some people quit their full-time jobs to work for this company just for one Friday morning, everything to get wiped and no one have any answers. People were expecting thousands and thousands of dollars in paychecks. Not a single person on this Zoom call got a dime. Now, my family member who had gotten fired one day before the company shut down on this Q&A call voices her concerns. She raises her hand and asks a question.
Yes, thank you. My concern is I brought all of these concerns to you, several staff members and the leadership team, and not only did you defend David and Excel, but you fired me from Excel Online Academy. So why did that happen, and why do we trust you? Because you defended David, and if there were concerns back to the beginning of February and earlier, why did you convince us to all stay? I specifically called up David. I specifically asked questions about pay, and you assured me, along with the rest of the leadership team, that everything was fine as you fired me from Excel.
Yeah, so I'll clear that up right now. The reason why we were fired is because we asked questions about your relation to certain people, and we asked you specific questions not related to David, and you lied about them. So we asked you, for example, about your relationship to somebody, and you told us that they were somebody that in reality they weren't. So that's why you were let go. It wasn't because of your concerns about David. It's because we were conducting an investigation about anonymous emails, and your responses were not accurate.
You can say whatever you want, but you fired me because I called David shady. That's exactly what was said. Because
it's not even the fact I have.
Damn, they had to mute you though. What they y'all think? Y'all not a part of this shit. Don't mute her. Unmute her and let her finish what she has to say.
I didn't mute her. I don't know.
Whoever mute her, unmute her. Say what she has to say. I want to hear exactly what she has to say. I want her to be unmuted before you all continue talking. And this is Ashley Allison. No, unmute her or I will leave this meeting. Because what makes us think you all are not a part? Please continue. Exactly. And I'm going to mute myself.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, because the people that they're saying I'm connected to, I did not lie about, and those people left because of the shadiness of this organization. As the leadership team continued to convince the rest of us that everything was fine and that we would be getting paid. It wasn't even a week ago.
I'll express this concern as well. We were under the impression that David was running this whole thing, and we had been, like I just showed you guys, we had a lot of assurance that this was a legitimate company. But
there should have been open communication.
So again, this Zoom call didn't necessarily prove anyone's innocence. What it did prove was that people who worked for the company were pissed. At this point, the 3 members of the executive leadership team who were leading this Zoom call encouraged everyone to report this to the FBI, report this to the Department of Education, report this to the Attorney General of Florida, talk to news stations, talk to radio shows, which I had already done a week ago. During the Zoom call slideshow, it was also revealed that initially the grant that all of this was under was supposedly $6 million. However, they revealed that it was actually $20 million and shared a screenshot of the U.S. Department of Education website where the balance said $20 million. I'm not sure why this was different in the beginning, but they revealed this at the end that the grant was $20 million. So I walked away after about 6 weeks. I worked 215 hours and I was owed $17,801.99. I felt absolutely awful for the 10 or so people that I brought on that worked similar hours and were owed similar amounts of money. And I'm grateful that all of these people are still my friends and know that it was not my fault. My original friend, the national director of this online academy, on the day I resigned, blocked me from all social media, blocked my number, and has not spoken to me since that day. Here's what I think happened. I think post-COVID, there were tons of grants on the U.S. Department of Education website that anybody could apply for, and they were very unregulated. So someone or a group of people, either David or somebody posing as David, hired all of us to work and show that we were working. They had us doing hours and hours of busy work so that we could clock and time in, and they could submit these time reports to the Federal Department of Education showing that somebody was doing something. They kept incentivizing working. You would get a bonus if you brought someone or referred someone on. You would get a bonus if you worked the weekends. You would get a bonus if you were working overtime. Everything was about punching those time cards in. It actually was hours being inputted to show the Department of Education that people were actually working for a real online academy somewhere. To my knowledge, we did not turn a single person away who applied for these positions. Which is why in just 6 weeks, this company went from one person hiring his 8 close friends to almost 100 employees. The person or people behind this scam submitted all of our hours, all of our pay stubs, and probably collected all of that money. Even though this TikTok series was several parts long, I have so many more pictures, screenshots, and hours more video footage. So if you want any more details or have any more questions, put them in the comments.
As soon as they said that they was gonna be paid $80,000, I was like, girl, ain't no damn teachers making $80,000. Not a principal's barely make $100,000. So to pay not even a principal, a superintendent barely makes $100,000 a year. So to be a principal, come on now, you gotta think more logical than that. But I also was thinking like, yeah, greed plays a part of this, but all they had to do was pay the people, and they could have clocked some bread. $20 million, and you clocking all these people's hours, and you getting grants to do all this stuff. You using dead people's stuff, names and stuff, and all, man, they could have, but they got the money and ran. They got the money and ran, but I don't know if they don't say if anybody was nobody has been arrested from this. Obviously, this is crazy. Crazy that nobody's been arrested for it yet. But yeah, ain't no teachers making that type of money. Like, you got to think about it. Like, my sister was a teacher. She was going to school. She went to school at University of Oklahoma, right? She got a master's degree. And after she got her master's degree at the University of Oklahoma, and she was working as a teacher making like, I believe it was like $36,000 a year. And so she had to, between her GI Bill and working as a teacher, she had to work as a teacher, and she was using her GI Bill to pay off her student loans. And she worked as a teacher for enough time to get them to what they call it, forgive her her student loans, and then she used her GI Bill for the rest of it, you know, to finally cover that. But at $36,000, like I used to like be with my sister, and I'd be like, damn, how you struggling like this, and you got your whole master's, and you over here struggling driving this Nissan Altima with 4-ball tires. Like, you should not be struggling like this. I would be like, F them kids. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it's crazy because, you know, I know people that are teachers that have to take second jobs, you know what I'm saying, just to enjoy life. So some of them, you know, they don't have to take second jobs, but they do because they want extra money. But that's the problem. Like, it's crazy. Teachers don't make that kind of money. So immediate red flag. Now, I know, you know, teachers in different states get paid a different amount of money, but, you know, teachers should get paid the most. And in some schools, like it's schools in Dallas, Texas, they have a hard time getting teachers because they're not paid enough. And now they have teachers checking bags, checking students, you know what I'm saying, monitoring halls. They're like, we're not security guards, but you kind of gotta be, because your life is on the line, obviously. So you gotta be that extra layer of protection. But should you have to be? No, but the school needs all of the resources that it needs. But you know who they pay? Lawyers, not doctors, judges. You know, it's a lot of people. The government makes bank. The government makes bank. So the pay isn't a red flag for what they were doing. I mean, it ain't, because they was doing a lot. Yeah, if they was starting out to school and they was doing all the work, yeah, it's not a red flag as much work as they was doing, but it is a red flag. I mean, if you're in Oklahoma and they tell you they're going to pay you $80,000 a year, it's a red flag. If you're in California, maybe not so much a red flag. You know what I mean? And you're in Florida, maybe not so much a red flag. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much teachers get paid in Florida. Let me see how much teachers get paid in Florida. Then I'll give y'all. So now they make approximately 53 to 54,000 with a starting salary around $47,000. Come on, man, that ain't enough, dog. That ain't enough. I'm gonna tell you, Oklahoma. Oh, it says averages rising over 60,000, moving from around 45,000 just a few years ago. So starting pay around 39,000. So that's more like starting pay 39,000. Yeah, you can make more throughout the years. But listen, you got teachers. You got teachers working as a teacher during the day and then going to work in colleges at nighttime. You know, to make that extra money. Yeah. That's why teachers always marry doctors and lawyers. You know what I'm saying? Because they ain't making nothing. Nothing. Wait, how could it be David if someone is paying David? Man, I don't know. I don't know how David got away with it. Honestly, I don't know how. I don't know how somebody could actually receive that grant without without there being a money trail. Like, the money had to be placed into an account. The account had to be owned by somebody. All you need is a EIN number. You can create a EIN number using fake names and stuff like that, and then you could create a fake LLC. I'm telling y'all something illegal. You could create a fake LLC, and then you could create a LLC using a fake name and a fake owner, and then you could create another LLC owned by that person in the LLC, and then you create a EIN number, and you can open up a bank account. But once you open up that bank account, your name is on it, but you don't have to put your name on it. You can put that just strictly your business name on it, especially if you know somebody in the bank. So if you know somebody in the bank, you got an N right there. So you can put and now you can create online bank accounts. So creating an online bank account is simple. You create an online bank account, business account, using an EIN number. It's not attached to anyone's name specifically, of course, because like I said, you're using a fake name. Then what you do is you get that money transferred to that. Then once the money wire hits, immediately transfer it out. You can get caught in 10 days. But if you can get it out faster than that, which they did, once they got everybody to clock those first hours, they got everybody to put in all those hours. That's why they had to grow it so fast. If they got 100 people working 80 hours in the first week, and then they was billing them at $36 an hour, and they clocking in hella overtime, they just cleared a couple $100,000 to send off for that grant. Then boom. But they said they got approved for a $20 million grant. If you got approved for a $20 million grant, then that money was already in the bank. You know what I mean? But then they got to show that the hours, somehow they got to show the hours is coming in so they can pull this money out to pay the people. So when they showing the hours, That's how they are able to access the money. Once they can access the money, they pull that money out, and that's how they get the cash. So there's an overseer of the money, but that had to do with either the bank or the people, the people who was distributing the grant. There's an overseer of that. So they may have got a $20 million grant, but they wasn't able to access it. That's why they needed the hours of the people who was working and the time cards and the work being done so they could show. That's why they had that one lady just sending forecasts, and she never knew what the forecast was, but she just knew that she was clocking in to work. That's part of the scam. You know what I mean? So